Wordplay. Was the New Deal a good deal? Ironic. Is greed good? Imagine posing that to some younger elementary kids. If you can find one of those. You guys remember those old Sears catalogs that used to like come in the mail? And you know, you get out the marker and like color everything and leave it someplace for your mom and dad right before Christmas. Yeah, my parents ignored me completely every time I did that. All right, mystery. So, you know, that idea of mystery. What's the real story behind here? And then yes or no. But yes or no with a caveat. Okay, so I say yes or no is not it. But if you, yes, but, no, but, you know, are all rules good rules? Do companies have a conscience? Those are yes no questions, but they are deeper, okay? So those are the different types of compelling questions. You want your open-ended, you want your questions to be open-ended, you want them to be relevant and rigorous, and you want to have the argument steps to check it, okay? So why do we want to go with argumentation? And I'm not going to read everything on here, but you can go through and you can notice, okay, different perspectives. That's a literacy, that's also in the standard. The reason we really want to do inquiry is when we present content in terms of winners and losers, and that's just the way history is presented. History is presented by the winners. We all know that, right? Okay? Textbooks are full of winners. But people who lost in history are probably sitting in your classroom. So think about that. This is why inquiry is so important. Those kids now have something they can hold on to, something they can identify with, and not the losers in the textbook. Okay? Also remember that construct may not always mean written. You construct an argument. You do a monologue. You do a video. You do a Google presentation. You do a website. Poster. Just because it says construct doesn't mean it has to be written. Okay? Sources. And we're going to kind of go through this quickly. Sources. This is anything in human existence that has been created. Anything. You want to talk about the evolution of flooring? This floor is a source. You want to talk about the evolution of what a media center looks like? Y'all are sitting at them. Sources is anything at all that allows you to interact with something that is human-made. So when you think sources, don't think just of a textbook or a primary source or something old and you can't read it because it's in cursive. It could be an artifact. Okay? Obviously, this is a source. This is also a source. What could the source on this side, the right side, tell us? Seriously, what can the source tell us? Right? Gender differences, yes. Women would go, we don't have those in our bathrooms. What else can that one tell us? Equity, shorter people, okay? But again, I want you to think outside the box. If your kids are needing some humor, throw one of these up there and just have them go, what? Okay? So, evidence. You get your evidence from your sources. Evidence is evidence is evidence, and how people interpret it is how history is made. Okay? I've told the story of Jane 1,000 times, I think, but I think her story is fascinating. Before 2012, everybody thought that Jamestown was founded in 1607. That's when they came. The first bride ships arrived in 1619. That's when the first women came. They had the starving time in 1609, 1610. This familiar to everybody? Okay? And then Jane came along. In 2012, when they were digging out a garbage heap in Jamestown, they found a skull. And they found some other bones. And they determined that the bones and the skull belonged to a young lady of about 14 years old who had had her brain dug out to be eaten. They also dated the dirt around this to 1610. History has now changed. Our evidence has has changed. The narrative has changed. So not only has it shifted the narrative of the bride shifts, of, okay, well, this was the narrative, but this is the evidence. It also shifts the idea of how bad the starving time really was. Okay? So evidence is wonderful, but you have to interpret it within your context. Okay, so there are different ways to adapt sources. And when we adapt sources, you do not want to give kids the entire Declaration of Independence if they don't need it. Okay? If you're focusing on just the preamble, give them just the preamble. If they don't understand a word, add a word in there that they will understand that is a synonym. There's nothing wrong with adapting text as long as you keep the meaning solid. The other thing I want you to understand is if it is a difficult text to grapple with, such as an enslaved person's narrative, don't make it long. If it's an easy text to read, you can make it longer. Does that make sense? If you have a student that has an IEP, go ahead and excerpt it even shorter. You can change it up by just bulleting instead of how it was. Give them the big pieces. However you feel you need to meet the student's needs. All right? So this is, I threw this in here just so you knew kind of what the different strands were and what are some sources you could find and what you could do with them. Okay? And then finally, communicating your conclusions, you have your summative and your formative. Your summative is always, always, always an argument and inquiry. Always an argument. And your formative is those formative performance tasks that allow the scaffolding to reach this. Okay? Now I'm going to show you some examples of that. So, here is your ELA connections. So if you're looking for connections to what we're doing in social studies with ELA, here you go. You got it. They go right with them, hand in hand. All right? All right, so we're going to stop here. I'm going to give you about a 10-minute break. Hand sanitizer is over there. I told you where the bathrooms were. I told you where the water was. If you have questions, you are welcome to come up. I'll put my mask on and see me, but I'll give you 10 minutes and we'll come back to building a house of inquiry.